Today we're going to ask the question, what's the difference between wrapping in foil and wrapping in paper?
I have prepared 2 identical pork shoulders to be smoked on a pellet smoker at 225 degrees. Once we hit the traditional stall, I'll pull both meats out and wrap one with tin foil, the other with butcher paper, and then we're going to study the differences. You'll see in the last half of this video, I summarize those differences, so you'll know when to choose one versus the other, depending on your needs. The pork shoulders were placed side by side in the smoker at 7 p.m. I woke up every hour to write down the temperatures. It is recommended that you smoke about 2 hours for every 1 pound of meat you have, but I don't believe that. My first smoke on a 9-pound meat took 24 hours. That's one of the reasons I'm doing these experiments. I want to figure out what the cook times vary so much. So, around 1 a.m., the meat stalled. It was at 153 degrees, not the traditional 160 degrees. So I pulled the meats inside, wrapped one with foil, wrapped the other with paper. Then I put them back on the smoker and began to measure again. Turns out that the tin foil meat reached 205 degrees at 11 hours and 45 minutes.
A lot of moisture trapped inside the foil. The bark is very soft. Great taste, very moist. Tear up this meat. We are now at 18 hours from the start time, and finally the paper wrapped pork shoulder is done. Just going to unroll it here. The paper is very wet. The top of this meat is very similar to the foil meat. In fact, let's just give this a try. It does have a little more texture to it, not quite as moist as the foil.
Now this graph clarifies a lot of things. I want you to take note of a couple things. When we started, both meats were at 70 degrees, and over 6 hours they both stayed the same and rose at about 16 degrees per hour. But both of them began to flatten out and not cook very fast after 6 hours. This is when we wrapped both meats with foil and paper. And the foil meat immediately returned to the same level of cooking and was completely done at 12 hours, while the paper meat struggled. It struggled for a full 6 more hours and never hit 205. If this meat continued at this rate, it was going to take another hour and a half to reach 205. To understand why this happens, you got to understand the physical properties of paper and foil. Turns out foil conducts heat 4,500 times better than paper. Also, it reflects heat back into the meat. It reflects 98% of that heat back in, where paper only does 10%. That explains why foil cooks 40% faster than butcher paper. So if you have enough time, use paper. It gives you a little bit better texture. But for the rest of us, you can save 40% of time by using foil, and both meats taste great. So that's some smoking science. Check back for some new experiments which are on the way.